Are you an order Muppet or a chaos Muppet? If Beaker's involved, shit is gonna end up on fire. Every person is either an order Muppet or a chaos Muppet. All right, here we go. I'm gonna pretend I'm pushing record because that feels right. Okay, I'm pressing record. Boop. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Howard. Welcome to Different, Not Broken, which is our podcast on exactly that there are a lot of people in this world walking around feeling broken, and the reality is you're just different, and that's fine. So, obviously, I work in mental health. I run a mental health company. I have spent a lot of time around incredible clinicians who have taught me lots of really amazing things about relationship dynamics and how people interact with each other and how they work together and how communication works best and what types of personalities tend to do well together, et cetera, et cetera. Like all of that is kind of germane to being in this field. And I have never found a theory more accurate or more appropriate that helps me describe almost any pair of people quite like this one, which relies on a lot of understanding of relationship dynamics that were kind of crafted by the greatest relationship philosopher of our time, Jim Henson. It was an article in, I want to say, Slate in 2013 that still guides pretty much everything, not everything, but a lot of how I understand relationship dynamics. It is an article called Chaos Theory, a unified theory of Muppet types. And it sorts everybody into one of two camps. Are you an order Muppet or a chaos Muppet? Every Muppet has their counterbalance in the Muppet universe, whether they're order or chaos, that balances out their order or their chaos. Miss Piggy has Kermit. Miss Piggy, definitely the chaos Muppet. Kermit, order Muppet. Kermit tries to keep things calm until he eventually loses his shit, usually at the hands of Miss Piggy. Miss Piggy has no interest in calm. No interest in order. And together, they balance each other. Same thing with Bunsen and Beaker. Bunsen, calm, scientific, great mind. Brain so big, he's bald. Beaker is so chaotic, he can't even speak an established language. He's all meeps and moops. It may be an established language that I'm not familiar with. You're right, that's short-sighted. I should give him more credit than that. But if Beaker's involved, shit is gonna end up on fire. And it's rarely Bunsen's fault. But they need each other. A Bunsen needs a Beaker, and a Beaker needs a Bunsen. We can look at our old pals, Bert and Ernie, public television's first out gay couple. But you know that Bert irons his underwear. You know he does. If you got the reference, get at me where the reference is from. You know we're besties if you got that reference. And Ernie has probably never done laundry in his life. He's wearing the same shirt. They need each other. This is not just a theory of Muppets. Your life is probably guided by Muppet Chaos Theory. In my house, I am the order Muppet. My husband is unmitigated chaos Muppet. My husband has never met a plan he could tolerate. I am like all plans. I'm only plans. That gives me an idea. I'm gonna walk away from that. I'm gonna walk away from that, but I'm gonna come back to it later. Okay. I'm just saying a streaming service to watch people build spreadsheets and call it only plans. Anyway, that just came to me. Trademark. I'm trademarking that. Step away, internet. Anyway, my husband is all chaos. He only has chaos. It is all he is capable of. We balance each other. Mostly. Sometimes. Occasionally. If I look at my brother and my sister-in-law, he is all Chaos Muppet. He is only Chaos Muppet. She is all order Muppet. That's all she's got. All order. Sometimes a Chaos Muppet can become an order Muppet. Often when order Muppets get pushed to the brink of insanity and become full Chaos Muppets by just like going full angry Kermit and smashing things, flailing puppet arms. That does happen, but it usually requires a catalyst. Every person is either an order Muppet or a Chaos Muppet. And once you start understanding this, your understanding of relationship dynamics will change fundamentally. It's so important. This is how I judge all relationships. My children, I have one order Muppet and one Chaos Muppet. My oldest, full order Muppet. She can't go to sleep unless things are organized and straight on her desk. My youngest, only Chaos Muppet. She does not give a shit where anything is. Nothing bothers her. She will sleep on top of a mess. She does not care. She doesn't care. Whereas my oldest is like, something is out of place. Everything's going to burn down. It's not going to burn down. No, I mean, probably not. It's probably not going to burn down. Probably not. Anyway, it's been, 13 years, and I still use this as the guidepost for all things relationship dynamics. So I encourage you to go read the article, which is, at this point, literature, like it's history. It's an important part of our zeitgeist. We must accept it as a philosophical tome. But tell me if you are an order Muppet or a Chaos Muppet. And then look at the people around you and find me one person who doesn't fit. Find me one. I bet you can't. I bet you can't. It is the way that I judge all relationships in my existence, despite being around people who can give me, in theory, better ways to assess relationships. None of them hold up. This one does. This one is the best guide by which you can judge all relationships. And I stand by that. And now we'll go to Allison, who has this week's small talk.
Hi, L2. I've been listening for a few months and keep pausing episodes because it feels like you're talking directly to me, which is unsettling, but also kind of comforting. I'm realizing how much I mask at work, especially in meetings. I come home absolutely wiped and still feel like I didn't do enough. How do you start unpacking masking when it's basically become your personality?
Okay, so the first thing is that I get that a lot, like almost daily, that people say that they don't know how I knew they needed to hear something or something like that. And I didn't know, but I know what I needed to hear at some point. And the whole premise kind of all of this is that I got to this place in my life thinking that things were just me, and it wasn't until I started talking about them that I realized that there were other people in almost identically the same situation. And so the point is, I didn't know you needed to hear it. I didn't know that anybody needed to hear it. It's probably what I needed to hear at some point, and that's the only compass I have for reference. So both I'm glad that that is working out for you and that you're getting what you need out of it, and also I'm sorry, because I know sometimes feels like you're being personally attacked, and I don't mean to. I apologize. The actual question, which is how to, figure out when you're masking and when you're not. So masking is frequently a function of neurodivergence, and it's how a lot of people who identify as neurodivergent or don't realize that they're neurodivergent make themselves, quote unquote, normal enough to exist in a neurotypical environment. Normal doesn't exist. Normal's bullshit. It's a non-existent standard, but it's the justification that people use to put themselves through that. And so that's a real thing. That's a valid thing. It's not only neurodivergent people who have to shrink to fit or change their personality to try to make friends or to fit in. I think that can be a very universal experience. And it is really easy to forget who you are in those environments, to forget who you actually are. Or in some cases, you've been doing it since the formative years in your life and you're not sure who you are. There's no right way to do that except to start taking a step back and clocking what feels good and what doesn't. What feels like something you want to do and what feels like something you don't want to do. Does that mean that you just stop doing all the things you don't want to do? No, because some of those have to be done. I can't think of a lot of people who are like, I'm so excited to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work today. That doesn't sound great to a lot of people, but you still have to do it if you have to pay your bills. I can't think of anybody who's like, man, the DMV sounds great. But you still need a driver's license, so you still have to go do it. But are there ways to make it more comfortable? Are there ways to adapt so that you care less about what the people around you think and more about what makes you comfortable in that situation? So some examples, like you have to ride the train to work every day, and because there are other people around, you make sure that you are dressed professionally and that you're wearing uncomfortable shoes because they look nice with your outfit, and you don't take a seat if there's someone else around who needs the seat or whatever. There's all these things that you do to be socially acceptable in that situation. And should you take seats from the elderly and infirm? Absolutely not. Please give them the chair. But also, is it okay to sit down once in a while because you're tired too? And if there's a chair available and, you're not sure if it's an inconvenience to somebody, but nobody else is going for it, take the seat. There have been plenty of situations where I've been in something like that where I'm like, it would be more convenient for me to do this thing, but I'm worried about inconveniencing these strangers who are not telling me it's a problem, so I'm not going to do that thing. And you can make a decision that whatever the thing that feels right to you in that situation, you're going to do. Don't listen to your music on speaker. Put your headphones in. But also, if the noise on the train bothers you and overstimulated when you're on the train, you can get earplugs. Even if you think that's going to be rude to the people around you who you would normally interact with differently because that's the way you were taught. You can get earplugs. You can ignore people. You can read a book. You can listen to a podcast. You can do all of these things that sometimes people don't do in semi-public environments because they feel like it's, rude or inappropriate or whatever. So it's really not about very clearly knowing who you are and who you are not, or even who you want to be, because that's a question that's probably a little far away from you at this point. But what feels good to my body? What gives me anxiety? What tamps down my anxiety? What makes me feel chaotic? What makes me feel like I'm in control of the chaos? How do I limit my stress? Whatever. And just leaning into that. And there are times where I am certain that doing something this way is the way that I want to do it. And then when in actual practice, I hate it. And I don't want to do it that way, even though I think that's the way I want to do it. And so be ready to find out new things about yourself, because you might not. If you've been doing this since you were 13, 14, 15, especially for women, because that's actually even earlier than that. That's when we kind of tend to assimilate into groups, because girls tend to be more sensitive to social pressures than boys are. And a whole nother story for people who don't identify as either, because there's a whole beast there about assimilation to gender norms when you don't identify as either. But people who do not identify as male, let's put it that way, tend to get to the point in their life where they start looking into either neurodivergence, or they get a diagnosis, or even outside of that, just decide they don't like the way that their life is going and the way that they have been taught to act and engage with other people, and they want to find who they actually are in those things. Sometimes you see this as a product of divorce. You see it when people get out of bad relationships. You see it when people move from one environment to another and have to start figuring out who they are and how they are. And so it's just about listening to your body, which you may have never done before, listening to your brain, your anxiety, your sensory overload, and going from there. Thanks for being here, guys. Have a good day. Love you, mean it. Hear me out. A spreadsheet streaming program called Only Plans.